move on and do our last. We can now move on to do the last type of factorising question, which is in pairs. These, in my opinion, are the most difficult type of factorising because everybody thinks they're easy, but they're a little bit tricky to actually understand what's going on. Let's check it out. Let's start with these two questions. They're technically already half factorised, and I'd like to do these first so that you can try to understand when you're doing the questions in pairs. These questions are very similar to your first type of questions of common factor. What you're doing here is you've got two terms and you're really looking for what's in common. It's pretty easy to see in this question that you have an x plus 2 and an x plus 2 in common. And so we want to take that outside the brackets. That's what we're going to be factorising, the x plus 2. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky because you've now removed the x plus 2 and we want to write down what's left. What's left, if I take out that x plus 2, what's actually left here is just the 3. And if I come over here and I take out the x plus 2, what's left over here? Plus y. And that's how you do these questions. You need to figure out what's in common and then you need to write down what's left. Let's think about that and do the same thing for question number 2. What can you see that's in common to both of these terms? Easy enough, the y minus 1. That means that that's what's going to come outside y minus 1. That has now gone outside. And I need to think about what's left. In our first term, once I've taken away that y minus 1, what's actually left? Just the x. We move on to the next term. If I've taken out this y minus 1, then what's left here? Just the minus 3. And that's how you do them. Some people will understand this a lot better than others. If not, you should be able to follow what I'm doing and be able to replicate it. Let's have a look at one that's not in. These two questions look completely different to the last two questions that we were doing. There are 4 terms, and as the heading indicates, we're going to do these questions in pairs. That means that we want to factorise out a common factor from 2 of these terms at a time. You don't factorise everything together. You do 2 at a time. They can make these questions tricky by not doing the first 2 and the last 2. Sometimes they make you think and they do the first and the third or the second and the fourth, and they are much more difficult because you have to spot which 2 terms you need to actually use to factorise. But I would say a good percentage of the questions are the first 2 and the last 2, and they're the ones that we're going to concentrate on until one of my other videos later where I do the more difficult questions. And if you get that far, brilliant. If not, try to understand the normal questions. We need to take out a common factor. So look at the terms and see what's in both. There's an a in both, so I'm going to take out an a. What's left? If I've taken out an a, I'm left with a y. A times y is ay. If I took out an a here, there's what's left now. There's a plus 4. And that's easy to check. A times plus 4 is plus 4a. So that's the first 2 terms already done. Let's do the next one. I now have by and plus 4b. What's in common? There's a b in common. Be careful, it's not just b, you have to put a plus b. And of course, if I'm taking out a minus b, then it would be a little bit trickier. Plus b times y gives me plus by. And the second term, if I took out a plus b, I would be left with plus 4. Hopefully you realise that this line is now like the questions that we did previously, and I now have a y plus 4 in common. That's really good, and that's what we're looking for. Once I have a y plus 4 in common, there's only one line left, and I've really just got to take out the y plus 4 that's in common and then write down whatever's left. If I took out the y plus 4, I'm left with an a. If I take out the y plus 4 from here, then I'm left with a b. And that's all I need to do. Let's have a look at the second one. 10x minus 25x squared plus 4y minus 10xy. I need to take out a common factor from the first two and a common factor from the last two. Remember, at the moment we're doing first two and last two. What's in common here? Hopefully you can see that there's a 5 and an x in common. And what would be inside the brackets? 5x times 2 gives me 10x, and 5x times minus 5x gives me 25x squared. You can always check it by expanding the brackets. What's in common over here? I definitely have a plus 2 in common, because 2 goes into 4 and 2 goes into 10. And there's a y in both, so there's a y in common as well. And I need to write down what's left. 2y times 2 gives me 4y, and 2y times minus 5x will give me 10xy. And it comes as no great surprise that I now have the bit in brackets is in common. And that's what's going to be taken out. So I have 2 minus 5x, and then I need to write down what's left. If I've taken out the 2 minus 5x from here, I'm only left with 5x. And if I take out the 2 minus 5x from this side, I'm left with plus 2y. Thanks for watching again. Don't forget to subscribe below so that you get notifications when my new videos come out.